Hello and welcome to The Rational Live. I'm your host, David Dole. A lot to get to today, of course. The headline on this video, Bernie threatening a government shutdown over stimulus checks. I will get to that story. It just broke, so I'm pretty much going to read a few paragraphs from this piece. But then I'll get to what I've planned. Let me go through some of that right now. Joe Biden caught on tape yelling at civil rights activists. Quite a story there. MSNBC suddenly shocked by poverty. Fighters win labor ruling against the UFC. John Ossoff releases shockingly great ad. And one more story here. Stephanie Ruhle attacks Bernie for being the lone working class voice in the Senate. And I believe that's all my prep stuff. It's funny, I restarted last week the tweets of the week segment, and then I completely forgot about collecting any tweets this week for the segment. That is supposed to be a weekly segment, but I'll get back to that next week, assuming I remember to actually collect tweets. But wow, yes, spent all morning and afternoon prepping all these stories. RationalNational.com/join. That's the Patreon page. Help support the show. You can also join on YouTube. Hit the join button. Definitely hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. What are you doing? Hit subscribe. Hit the bell icon. As when it comes to independent media, YouTube always props up what they call authoritative sources, basically corporate media, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, while suppressing independent media. So it's important to also click the bell icon so you know when videos actually go up. And what else? I have a Twitch channel that I'm on there, that I'm on occasionally. That's linked below the video as well. And I think that's, Facebook page. I'm also on Facebook now on a regular basis. The videos that are on here are also going up on Facebook. So check out the Facebook page as well if you care at all about Facebook. I know a lot of people don't. All right. I'm still composing myself here after running to this chair. I feel like every week it's like a rush to get this. I should probably do this at the beginning of the week as opposed to having a live stream at the end, so I have some actual energy to go through with an entire live stream. But regardless, about to get to the stories here. Also, of course, I'll take your super chats throughout the stream as well. All right, let me get into this first story. As I said, it just broke, so I don't have many details on this, but I'm not sure how many more details you really need, except for the headline here. But let me get to it. Bernie Sanders is threatening a government shutdown if people don't get real financial help, meaning the stimulus checks, or really survival checks. They're not really stimulus checks. They're checks meant for people to survive. You see right now, there's a story out recently, Washington Post, shoplifting is at an all-time high, and it's people taking food, baby formula, diapers, just so that they can get by, showing you how serious the situation is right now for Americans. But this story just broke, so here's a tweet here from Paul McLeod of BuzzFeed. Bernie Sanders says he's going to allow a temporary spending bill to pass today to avoid a government shutdown, but says he will not do the same next week, and he will force the Senate to stay in over Christmas unless they pass direct COVID relief payments of $1,200 per person. Fantastic. A little more here from The Independent. This is a quote from Bernie Sanders. "We're not going to go home for the Christmas holidays unless we provide for the millions of families in this country who are suffering," the Vermont Independent Senator said in a speech on the Senate floor on Friday. Mr. Sanders said it was not like him to use government funding deadlines as leverage to push certain policy priorities, and he stood aside on Friday to allow negotiators another week to work out the details of an all-inclusive fiscal year 2021 appropriations package. Quote, "I'm not one of the members of the Senate who shuts down, does this or does that, and keeps you here for the weekend. I don't do that," Mr. Sanders said. But with the coronavirus pandemic raging as strongly as ever, he is willing to take government funding to the brink next week if it will help him secure more direct payments for Americans. Quote, this I want to say right now, I am prepared to withdraw my objection at this moment, but I will not be prepared to withdraw an objection next week, he said. This is basically what has to be done. The vast majority of Congress doesn't appear to care, but you have, a few individuals, Bernie Sanders, of course, leading the charge on this to try and get people help. I've discussed before, a one-time check of $1,200 is really not even near enough. Other countries, as I've discussed, Canada, you had $2,000 a month, the CERB. It wasn't universal, but if you lost your job or were impacted by COVID-19, you could apply for that $2,000 a month, and you would get it fairly quickly once applying for it. Then you have wage subsidy, or wage subsidies in other countries like Germany that covered up to 87% for full-time pay and up to 100% for part-time pay, and that was direct payments to people that, again, were not getting a paycheck. And even if you were not working or working part-time, the government would still cover your paycheck to ensure that you weren't struggling during this time that they want you to stay home because it's a pandemic. So $1,200 in the grand scheme of things, comparing to other countries, really is not much of anything, but it's something. And people absolutely need that money. All right. That is that story. Just breaking. Let me prep the next one. As I've discussed a million times before, when I'm prepping stories, I'm the only person here. I'm the producer and the host, so it takes me a few minutes sometimes, especially with this next one that has several links to prep the story. But just talk amongst yourselves as I do that. Before I get there, let me grab a few chats here. Radzoso says, "I watched a video called, quote, A Future Beyond Capitalism, Socialism Explained. Highly recommend. It's on the Second Thought YouTube channel." All right, check that out. Liam just said, "Just discovered JJ McCullough's channel. He's a Canadian conservative, but I enjoy some of his videos. Do you have an opinion on him?" Well, a lot of people ask me about this. I don't know who this person is, except for the fact that I see his names occasionally. But no, I have no idea. Honestly, I'm too busy reading, trying to cover the news every day. I spend very little time checking out other people's content, unless it's for research purposes. But no, I do not know who that is. The Mark O'Brien says, "Nina Turner for Congress, can't wait." Yes, Nina Turner running for Congress in Marcia Fudge's seat, who's going to be in the Biden cabinet. Amazing news. it's her district as well in Ohio. So I I imagine she's the front runner for that seat, and she's going to have an incredible support of grassroots donors backing her in that race as well. Adam Bryceland saying, "Why the hell won't anyone step up and challenge Pelosi for Speaker? What are they afraid of? Why not grow a pair and fight? I'm pissed." So yeah, this is more of a discussion for weeks ago before she was put back in, but I completely agree. But the reality is there isn't enough opposition to Pelosi within the Democratic caucus for a challenger to win. The Democratic Party largely runs on seniority. And you see that with Pelosi, you see that with Dianne Feinstein, who, thank God, was taken off the Judiciary Committee, but should not be a senator anymore after the story that came out about her essentially appearing to have dementia or Alzheimer's. And people like Chuck Schumer, like they run on seniority while Republicans don't, which allows Republicans to be more agile and more strategic and be able to change with the times. Meanwhile, Democrats are running the playbook from the Reagan era. And you wonder why, even when Biden wins the presidency, they're still losing seats. It's because the entire party is run on people that are using a very old playbook and have no idea what the hell is going on. One more. Ruri Sapphire says, "You're not a dish, you're a man." I don't know what that means, but thank you. Yes, I'm a man. That's correct. All right, let me prep this next story as you all talk amongst yourselves. By the way, my hair is really big today. I came across a video researching another segment I'm going to get to, an old video of mine from a year ago, and I was like shocked at seeing myself because I do not look at all like I do now. It's almost like looking at a different person. But maybe I'll show you that when we get to that story. But all right, got to prep this one. I'm looking at my monitors here. So the next story that I'm prepping here is the Joe Biden story. This is where he is, you'll see it, but caught on tape yelling at civil rights leaders. Quite the piece. Also today I had sushi for lunch, in case you're wondering. Last week I was discussing how I had salad and felt like I was gave me energy a little more than usual. Didn't have salad this week, but still feel like I think sushi's a good lunch before a live stream. I don't feel too bloated, too full, but I'm still satisfied. Almost prepped here. Almost. Not quite. Forgot how many links there were in this. All right. I think I'm good. All right, I think I hear more chats coming in, but I'll get those after this segment. Joe Biden was caught on tape yelling at civil rights leaders during a post-election meeting. Now, this was broken by Ryan Grimm at The Intercept inside Biden's meeting with civil rights leaders. In a recording obtained by The Intercept, Biden was unenthusiastic about executive action and warned against police reform before Georgia's Senate runoffs. Now, I'm not going to, get into all the details here. I'll link to the piece below the video, but it shows you that Biden is using the exact same strategy that Democrats have used for decades. Basically, instead of being proactive and putting your own message out there, they are simply being reactive and afraid of what Republicans might say, preventing them, or at least he's using that as an excuse, preventing him from actually putting any real action forward. Now, before I get to the actual clip, or one of the clips from this piece, just a little bit here to set it up. On Tuesday, a group of civil rights leaders urged him privately to take a slew of executive actions during a 2-hour virtual meeting. While Biden didn't close the door to anything specific, he was far from enthusiastic about the idea of using executive action. A recording of the virtual meeting, attended by Biden, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, and civil rights leaders, was obtained by The Intercept. So let me get to, there's several excerpts from this. You can go to the full piece to listen to the whole thing. But let me give you one here of this is Biden's entire demeanor during this call.
A lot of people in our community are getting a little anxious because they are not seeing enough of the progress they thought they would have seen at this point. Let's not disappoint them, and let's not get to a place where voters in Georgia begin to second guess.
Okay, let me respond. I've got to go. Let me respond. There's a lot to respond to here. Let's get something straight. You shouldn't be disappointed. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done this far. Okay? Number one. Number two, I mean what I say when I say it. I mean what I say when I say it. I'm the only person who's ever run on 3 platforms that I was told could not possibly win the election, and I never ceased from it. One was on restoring the soul of this country because of what I saw happen in Charlottesville. That was it. No one else was talking about it. The words of presidents matter. Nobody else, no progressive, was talking about it. I did.
No progressive was talking about Charlottesville? Now, before I get to some reactions to this clip, I have no issue with the approach, with this forceful approach. I have no issue if you are actually fighting for people. But Biden, his whole demeanor here is simply a reaction to criticism that he is not doing enough. So instead of using this kind of forceful approach, say, against Republicans who are continuing to put out bullshit about what Joe Biden represents, or put out bullshit about things like defund the police, instead he is saving that energy and that anger for people who are otherwise supporting him. And again, this is the failed Democratic strategy of always being reactive to Republicans and being only proactive when it's against suppressing their own base. Now, some reactions to this clip here. This was posted by Austerity is Theft. Says Joe Biden, the only candidate who noticed and dared to run on what happened in Charlottesville, was bad. And of course shows examples of other candidates discussing Charlottesville. Really not, I mean, this should be obvious, but in case it wasn't obvious, of course, practically everybody, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Beto O'Rourke, Andrew Yang, I'm sure everybody else that ran for president also discussed Charlottesville. And yeah, so I don't even know what Biden's talking about. I mean, that he's just, and it's, look, I'm not sure if there's more to that part of the discussion, but people have to push back, whether privately or publicly. You have to push back on claims like that. It is such obvious bullshit. If anybody, imagine if Bernie Sanders said that. I was the only guy that ran on Charlottesville. Nobody else ran on that. Can you imagine the freak out on CNN, MSNBC? People will be like, "What? Bernie Sanders has gone crazy. He's nuts. We got to push him out of the Senate now. He's too old." Yet Joe Biden claims he's the only one discussing Charlottesville, and crickets. Now, there is a little more here. Oh yeah, more reactions. Libby Watson here tweeting out saying, I mean, like everyone who got mad about how Bernie yells because he's mad about poverty. Biden here yelling at activists because he thinks he's the only guy who had the courage to run on Charlottesville. Luke Savage here tweeting out, Biden has been like this all along, instinctively hostile and angry when activists don't show the appropriate deference. The narrative about his deep compassion and personal decency has been a cover for his donor-friendly agenda since the primaries. Simple as that. And Hanukkah Solo here tweeting out, this is deeply upsetting. Biden completely losing his temper when gently pushed from the left. The way he shut down critique as irrational, the way he demanded loyalty, the way he staked credit for the work of others. He sounds a lot too much like Trump here. Scary shit. Completely agree. Now, a little more here from the piece on, this is in relation to Bernie to Biden talking about defund the police and how he's against it. The article says here, Biden made his comments unprompted, referencing an early remark made by NAACP President Derek Johnson, who had warned that appointing Tom Vilsack to be Secretary of Agriculture, which he is now, thanks to Biden, would anger black farmers in Georgia, as well as black voters generally in the state, for whom Shirley Sherrod was a hero. Sherrod was fired by Vilsack from her position as Georgia Director of Rural Development for the U.S. Department of Agriculture during Vilsack's previous tenure as Agriculture Secretary during the Obama administration. Her firing was quickly revealed to have been a mistake and based on an incomplete airing of a video by the late conservative provocateur Andrew Breitbart. Particularly in Georgia, Johnson noted Vilsack's capitulation was still a sore spot, and nominating him would be disastrous electorally. Quote, if you consider the victory that you appreciated in Georgia, it was around 12,000 votes. And so as you consider appointments, you also must consider what impact that would have on voters in the state of Georgia. And I will submit to you that former Secretary Vilsack could have a disastrous impact on voters in Georgia. Shirley Sherrod is a civil rights legend and hero, Johnson said. So you have here, look, we're not talking about far left Antifa here talking to Joe Biden. These are just civil rights leaders in Georgia, and they are being critical of having Vilsack in the position that he's in because of what Vilsack has done in the past and how voters in Georgia feel about him. And still, Joe Biden responds about how he thinks defund the police is actually worse, or is more destructive, completely ignoring this whole criticism of Vilsack. And as you've seen, Vilsack is in fact put into the very position that they told Biden not to put him in. Now, one reaction to this from Ryan Cooper. Well, you see, we must have the deep experience of Tom Vilsack, best known for making $1 million a year as a dairy lobbyist and firing an innocent black woman on the orders of Andrew Breitbart. Again, it is almost comical how much Democrats, moderate, or I should say conservative Democrats like Joe Biden, how much they care about what the GOP say, compared to how much they don't care and are actively fighting their own base. So this is showing us right now that if you expect anything or want anything to get done under Joe Biden, it's going to take nothing short of a general strike to have any sort of substantial change. All right. Let me grab some chats and move on to the next story. Ken Clive says, what books/literature would you recommend for people to be better informed about the left? It's a very broad question. I'm not the person to ask about that. I honestly, it depends what you're talking about as well. What exact topic. I'm still reading through Stephanie Kelton's new book, The Deficit Myth. But again, I can't think of any books that would broadly inform you on the left. I'm sure there are other people you can ask that could give you better answers, though. MC Dano says, Seinfeld or Friends, who you got? Come on now. It's not even close. Seinfeld, obviously. Friends is fine, but it's forgettable. Seinfeld is obviously better written, just holds up more. It's a better show. I don't think there's any debate about that. BS says Progs need to withhold their vote for speaker and force a Medicare for all vote. ACA has provision for Medicare for all in times. Why is Siri going off? That's really annoying. ACA has provision for Medicare for all in times of emergencies used in Montana due to asbestos expo. I think it's fair to say that progressives should withhold their vote for the speaker. The only issue that ever comes up with this is how that could impact them internally, in terms of committee appointments and that kind of thing. Because again, seniority means everything in the Democratic Party. So like if you show any sort of I don't know, any kind of action against somebody in a position of power within the Democratic Party, that could end up hurting your ability to actually get anything done yourself in the future. But I mean, the real issue is what was brought up earlier, that there isn't a challenger, that there isn't a proper challenger, and there isn't the energy within the caucus to be willing to challenge Nancy Pelosi. Because it's not even just about ideology. It's just get somebody else in there. Like, Nancy Pelosi is horrible at strategy. Just really pretty much anybody else, as long as they aren't, any further right than Pelosi is, anybody else would be better. And the GOP always hold up Pelosi as, this progressive representative from San Francisco. Like, it's just, not that you should be responding to what the right's saying, but no one likes Nancy Pelosi. So just get somebody who at least on the surface appears to represent working people. Nancy Pelosi in her wealthy district just clearly does not. And considering what she's fought for as well, clearly does not. And on top of that, is just not good in terms of fighting Republicans. So, yeah. Unfortunately, it appears we're stuck with her for at least 2 more years. But let's hope that can change in the future. Nate Olson, thank you for your super chat. A new member, but now retracted, so I'm guessing not a new member. Samantha Sider says, you think Georgia runoffs are going well for Dems? I try to have no hope anymore, so that I'll be surprised if something good happens. But no, I'm going in with the assumption that they're going to lose both. So if they win one or win both, then I'll be surprised and it'll be good. But no, I have a story coming up on John Ossoff on one of his new ads out that is actually really good, especially for him. But I don't know. I really don't know. The only thing that may save Democrats in Georgia is that there is this anger towards the results in Florida from Republicans. And I guess many conservatives are saying don't vote at all in the runoffs, because then you're enabling the Hugo, I think they're saying Hugo Chavez and like China somehow stole the election. I have no idea. But there are conservatives saying don't vote in Georgia, because then you are saying that this voting system is perfectly fine. So that may be the only thing. If there's a suppressed vote for Republicans in the runoffs, that may be the only thing that saves them. But we're going to have to see. Ken Clive says, or is a new member. Thank you. Gina McGrath says, as a black person, this audio almost makes me regret voting for Biden, but the alternative was far worse. Yeah, I mean, you still gotta, the whole point of getting out Trump was to get out Trump. It was never about Joe Biden. It was about getting out a neo-fascist. I mean, even Cornel West voted for Joe Biden, and he is consistently, for not even just recently, forever, Cornel West has been very critical of Joe Biden. So he understood it was about getting out the neo-fascist. But that doesn't mean, you stop the fight against Biden. If anything, you clearly have to ramp it up. As you're seeing how bad he is, you have to get to some kind of general strike for anything substantial to be done. Jaden Kirby, thank you for becoming a member. All right. Let me prep. Let's check in the normie chat. All right. Let me prep the next story, which I don't think will take me as long. Probably. I'm good. In a surprising recognition of reality, MSNBC contributor Casey Hunt discussed the extent of the extreme poverty that Americans are facing right now. Watch this. Also, thanks to Case Study QB, always getting those hidden gems.
We may get there, Joe. I mean, Democrats are looking...
Except Case Study QB, get your audio up. You want to peak at -6 dB. There you go.
We may get there, Joe. I mean, Democrats are looking around, and frankly, some of the centrist Republicans they're negotiating with are saying there are state and local jurisdictions everywhere that really need help. You have transit systems that are on the verge of collapsing. I mean, even just here in Washington, they're talking about, completely slashing, cutting the metro system that serves downtown D.C. Republicans argue that this is a problem that's mostly experienced in blue states and blue cities. But I think centrists in both parties are looking around and saying, no, actually, I mean, you remember those Michigan Republicans came to Washington to try and talk to President Trump about the election, and instead they pled with him, please send us money to help shore up our finances. This is, a problem that is affecting everyone. And frankly, there's more agreement on it. They seem to have struck a deal on state and local funding in that bipartisan group. So that means liability has always been the stickier piece of this. And why is that? There are a lot of interest groups, businesses, trial lawyers, obviously. But think about if you're a worker. I mean, there have already been lawsuits around that. There was a meat packing plant in Iowa, for example, where people were ordered to go to work in the beginning of the outbreak. And a lot of people got sick. A lot of people died. So Democrats are looking at this and saying, OK, you're going to say that blanket any company that doesn't follow the rules, that doesn't provide PPE, that doesn't go along with local ordinances, they're going to be immune from lawsuits. They don't think that that's acceptable. And that's why McConnell drawing this line in the sand is so incredibly controversial. But again, I mean, just as you and I are talking through this, you're down in these weeds that have trapped lawmakers and are leaving Americans stranded. So I think your point's the right one. How do they figure out how to just move forward, make sure that these programs don't expire for people? Because, I mean, there's reports. The Washington Post had an absolutely heartbreaking story yesterday about how people stealing food is up in the pandemic. Yeah. Like, people are shoplifting food. And they talked to one store owner who said, we deal with this from time to time, or we used to. But now, I don't call the police. I stop them. I tell them, please don't come back. But they look at me and they say, well, I was just hungry. And what do you say to that? So, I mean, that's where we are as a country. And it's really, I mean, we're the wealthiest country on the face of the earth. I mean, and this is where we are.
Casey, we talking.
Now, the fact that I've made this into a story should show you how rare it is for cable news to acknowledge widespread poverty, especially when it comes to their political commentary. So there will occasionally be those investigative pieces going into, what, is happening in a certain city to some people. But very rarely in just their basic political commentary, this is Morning Joe, will it be brought up about will poverty, the widespread poverty be brought up? And really, it's not just during the pandemic. This existed before the pandemic. It's just exacerbated the problem. So a little more on that. Quote, we're seeing an increase in low-impact crimes, said Jeff Zisner, chief executive workplace security firm Aegis. It's not a whole lot of people going in, grabbing TVs and running out the front door. It's a very different kind of crime. It's people stealing consumables and items associated with children and babies. An estimated 54 million Americans will struggle with hunger this year, according to the Post. The newspaper, citing statistics from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, noted the figure marks a 45% increase over last year. The paper noted more than 20 million Americans are on some form of unemployment assistance, and 12 million will run out of benefits the day after Christmas unless there is a new relief measure. So this really shows you the extent of how bad it's gotten. As you saw here, a 45% increase over last year. Now, this also gets into the issue when it comes to, MSNBC's commentary on this. Where was this during the primary? Where is this when Bernie Sanders is on? Like, they constantly discuss, and not just MSNBC, but these cable news sources, that any sort of legacy media in general, newspapers, television, always discuss Bernie Sanders as being far, far left, fringe, out of touch. Yet here they are acknowledging the reality of poverty in America. And who was the only person discussing how bad it is during the primary? Bernie Sanders. So it shows you that even if they'll occasionally acknowledge how bad poverty is in the U.S., they will never actually connect it to the lawmakers that are trying to get anything done to fix that problem. All right. I was going to maybe I should have brought this in. The COVID graph. I was going to bring this into discussion as well, but I might as well just show you now. Look at this. Like, this is daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million people. This is the rolling 7-day average, giving you a better idea of how all these countries compare. The U.S., this is ridiculous. The numbers keep skyrocketing. Never really got out of the first wave. First wave into a second wave, into a third wave, into sort of a semi-fourth wave here, because there's a little dip after the third wave. It is just completely ridiculous. And you look at Germany. Look, no country's doing great. There are some. Vietnam, scary communism, doing great there. They have, I believe, 40 million people in Vietnam. And look at the numbers. Australia, but you could say, it's surrounded by water, so an island, a little different, maybe, but still, their numbers are down. Japan, same thing. But look, these numbers are still, they're not great, but they're nowhere near where the U.S. is. And a lot of these countries, most of them, had some form of real financial help. So, as I've discussed in the past, Germany had a wage subsidy that would cover up to 87% for full-time wages and up to 100% for part-time wages. And it's clearly allowed people to be able to keep their job, keep getting paid, but stay home and lessen the impact of COVID-19 because of that. But this is what you get when you have almost no financial help. People being forced to go out, keep running their businesses, keep the doors open, keep people coming in because they have nothing else to do. They need to keep making that money. They need to be able to survive. They have to pay for food. So when you have no real help for people, there's no incentive to stay home. There's no incentive to physically distance because they have to be able to eat and live. And that's the situation you see right now. All right. Very depressing. But let me attempt to move on. Let me grab some chats. Where was I? There you go. Jaden Kirby, thank you for becoming a member. Nick Blocker says, hi, David. You could train a puppy to play basketball or hockey. Would you just play for fun? If you could train a puppy to play basketball or hockey, how would you train a puppy to play hockey? Okay, or basketball, but hockey especially. Would you just play for fun or push the dog to go pro like in the movies? Thanks. I would play for fun. I don't think in any scenario outside of a children's movie would a dog be allowed to professionally play basketball or how is a dog playing hockey is what I want to know. How are they skating? How are they holding a stick? How are they good enough to be able to play in the big leagues? Hilarious question though. Thank you. Matt W says yes, general strikes leading to real system change. Mama Bear, Pelosi, is that you? Says Shahid Buttar should have beaten Pelosi. She's too out of touch and weak to continue being speaker. I agree completely. But as I discussed before, it was always going to be an uphill battle. One, Pelosi is obviously very well known in her district. And two, her district is more wealthy than most because it's San Francisco. And, obviously there are still people in her district that are poor, middle class, or homeless. But when it comes to the people that normally vote, it's going to be largely wealthy people, and they're going to be voting for who has protected them so far, and that's Nancy Pelosi. But I hope Shahid Buttar keeps challenging her, but it seems like at this point, unless she retires, she'll probably be in that position forever. Or I should say in that seat forever. Maybe not leader forever, but in that seat. Chomper Fly says, need Bernie to do this, but so late, even if checks are approved now, they wouldn't make it for weeks, especially through mail. Remember last time there was now huge U.S. post office backups were screwed. So there's another way to do it through, I believe, the IRS, where it's not necessarily checks being mailed to you, but it would just be dumped in your account using the account that they have on file. That's my understanding anyways. That's how it works in Canada for the CERB. Your account is connected to the revenue agency, the CRA here, and they just deposit the money right into your account. So there isn't, I guess maybe if your account's not on file, you'd have to be mailed the check. But I don't see why they couldn't do it the same way that Canada did. But I'm not all that familiar with what info the IRS has or doesn't have. Nate Olson says, we get out Trump and the work begins. That's right. Elvis is cat. Says, keep up the great work. Thank you. With some cat paws. Adam says, know any sources / countries that deal with solutions for problems in schools that switched to online during pandemic? Teachers and students, parents are struggling. Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, as I don't have any children. But I don't know. It seems the best way to deal with it is through online learning. And I know that becomes an issue with some people. Not everyone has access to high-speed internet. Not everyone has the ability to have their children stay home. Parents have to go out and work, unfortunately, during a pandemic when they should be at home isolated if they had some real financial help. But I don't know. I would imagine that learning at home is the safest way to do it. But of course, as I said, comes with its own issues. Yada News says, can you please alert people to the fact that a stimulus check is de facto state and local aid due to the taxes placed on increased purchase and property? I'm not exactly sure what you're saying here. De facto state and local aid due to the... What's the argument? But what's the argument against that? I'm not sure I understand. I don't think people are against stimulus checks because they don't think it's local or state aid. Or because, I don't know what you're trying to say. All right, gonna prep the next story here. All right. Some of these links, because of these, some websites are very particular about how much you read them before they lock you out. I have to keep these tabs open like all week so that I can eventually utilize it, which is the case with the New York Times. mixed martial arts fighters have won a key ruling in their case against the UFC, allowing them to have class action status moving forward. Now, this is around the allegation that the UFC intentionally suppresses fighters' pay while holding a near monopoly on the sport. So this was a story broken by New York Times. Let me read a little bit here. The lawsuit, which will be granted class action status, could eventually cost the UFC billions of dollars, fundamentally altering the world of mixed martial arts and establish new antitrust case law. Now, this this ruling means every fighter who competed between late 2010 and 2017, around 1,200 fighters, will be a part of the lawsuit unless they opt out. Now, a little more here. The UFC could be forced to pay the fighters almost $5 billion. At an evidentiary hearing in 2018, one expert for the plaintiffs said fighters were deprived of $1.6 billion in pay because mixed martial arts lacks a competitive labor market, and in antitrust cases, damages are tripled. The $1.6 billion was determined by a formula comparing the UFC, where less than 20% of total revenue has historically been paid to fighters, to major team sports like the NBA and NFL, where the athletes receive around 50% of total revenue. Now, this, I'm sort of a casual mixed martial arts viewer, same with boxing. I'll watch the occasional fight, but I'm not all that into it. But I have heard for a while that UFC fighters are simply not happy with how they are paid or not paid, especially since they completely took out the ability for fighters to be able to have their own sponsors, as every fighter now basically wears the same colors. So that limited their ability to be able to sort of, make their own revenue on the side in addition to what they were making with the UFC. But now they're stuck in this system where it's either UFC or Bellator, and UFC clearly has a near monopoly on the sport. And when you're only paying people, less than 20% of total revenue, and you compare that to other major sports like the NBA, NFL, or I imagine the NHL is the same thing, where around 50% of total revenue is paid to the athletes, it really shows you that they have a case here. And this is obviously this is just on the way to a potential victory down the line. This is just a ruling that allows them to, or that grants them class action status so that they can go forward with this lawsuit. But I'm polling for them. They put their bodies on the line. These are people that you could argue have worse long-term health impacts because of the sport than in other sports. So, to be fair, the NFL also has, there can be long-term damage in terms of the brain. Hockey as well, very, close contact sport. But the UFC, you're literally punching people in the head. If there's any sport where the athletes have dire outlooks when it comes to their future post fighting, it's going to be the UFC. So if any sport is paying their athletes, more than others, it should be the UFC, yet they're paying their athletes less, much less than everybody else. So I'm glad to see that they are so far successful in moving this forward. And ultimately, I hope they win this fight. All right. A little short story there, but very important. And also, just, Dana White, not a good person. Not a good person. I think that's been clear for a while. But to have such, lack of respect for the people that make you the money, just throwing your fighters into the ring and paying them a tiny portion of what you're making, it's really disgusting. And I'm sure it's not just him. I know UFC is, there's a lot of people in power there, but he's the face of it, so he deserves the crap. All right. Any more here? Ryan S. says, if you e-filed with IRS, it's faster. Mail is slower. Yeah, okay. So that's what I figured. So if you did e-file with the IRS, then I imagine they'd be able to pay you directly with those checks as opposed to having to mail them. Nick Bacher says, thanks for answering my puppy athlete question, David. When I asked Steve Dangle the same, he ignored me. Come on now. I like having some fun. In fact, I prefer fun questions to to serious ones, since all these stories are serious anyways. Yada News says, because Congress is arguing over state and local aid when they could just drop it and increase stimulus, I just want people to know. Oh, wait, so this is a continuation of your previous one. So let me read these two together. Maybe I'll better understand. Can you please alert people to the fact that a stimulus check is de facto state and local aid due to the taxes placed on increased purchase and property? Because Congress is arguing over state and local aid when they could just drop it and increase stimulus. I just want people to know. Oh, yeah. Well, what they could be doing, what really they should be doing, just to make this all easier, is, I think this is what you're saying, is just pass stimulus separate from anything else. So, argue over what else is done in addition to a stimulus. And again, I don't like using the word stimulus. They're survival checks. People they need food. They need to pay their rent. But pass a bill that just sends money right into people's hands. That would be the actual thing to do. And right now, you're only really seeing Bernie Sanders and I guess Josh Hawley on the GOP side fighting for this. I'm sure Hawley's going to run for president in 4 years. But for the most part, politicians really do not seem to understand how bad it is right now. And a lot of them just live in their own world, their own bubble. And it was already obvious before, considering what they do and don't do in Congress. The idea that your healthcare system is still tied to private insurance is nuts. And that's just one example. But you see now, even during a pandemic, how completely out of touch or uncaring, unempathetic people are in this situation. One more? No, a few more. Matt W. says, general strikes like the ones right now in India? Yes. And thank you for reminding me. I do need to cover that story. Eric Olson says, Yada was saying they want to give states money and they would get it from direct checks going to people and then taxes from purchases, etc. Liam says, rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is that water? It's pretty good. It keeps me hydrated, obviously, and keeps me going. Usually I would usually have beer or something, maybe coffee, but I've discovered last week that water is much better during a live stream. Matt W. says, giving away the 40% wasted food. Sorry, just give away the 40% wasted food. I'm not sure what that refers to specifically. But, yeah, there's definitely a lot of wasted food. That's more of a behavioral issue, though, with humans, as opposed to anything else. Okay. Stopping there. Cool. Good story is next. Maybe good's the wrong word, but a less depressing story is next. So the Georgia runoffs are coming up, and Democratic challenger John Ossoff going up against Republican Senator David Perdue. Ossoff has surprisingly, shockingly released a great campaign ad. Now, I'm shocked by this because Ossoff is not a progressive candidate. In fact, he's, for the most part, fairly conservative. Doesn't back, Medicare for all, doesn't back Green New Deal. But he does back sending money to people. And that's what this ad highlights. And I think he does a fantastic job selling his agenda while also discussing how David Perdue is lacking.
I'm John Ossoff, and I approve this message.
When this pandemic hit, millions of Georgians like me had to file for unemployment. We needed our senator's help. But for David Perdue, we weren't the priority. Senator Perdue voted to give hundreds of billions to big corporations, even if they lay people off. But he fought against the $1,200 stimulus check for workers and supported cutting our unemployment benefits. Even at a moment like this, David Perdue's there for his donors, but not for us.
Now, that was really good. And it's really for two main reasons here. One, John Ossoff is not in the ad, which I think is a plus. Having a guy in a suit, I think inherently for a lot of people, especially the average person who is just inherently distrustful of politicians, seeing the politician on screen, you know, in his suit, talking all smooth, they're just not going to trust him. So having someone else there, having, you know, just an average guy from Georgia talk about what Perdue has or hasn't done for the state, I think is important. And having him deliver that message is a lot more effective than John Ossoff doing himself. And also, it's clear and direct about two main issues. The fact that Perdue is serving corporate interests and that these stimulus checks are needed for people to survive. And by focusing on that main issue of having these stimulus checks, or I rather call them survival checks because people need the money, being able to focus on that singular issue and showing how these two candidates differ, and that essentially Perdue is blocking your ability to be able to receive that money, that I think goes a long way to potentially convincing a lot of people who may just stay home. Like, it's not gonna convince the diehard Trump voter, but that isn't the idea here. The idea is getting people out to vote that would not normally be interested, because either they don't trust politicians or they don't like either party, which is a lot of people. But seeing that there would be a clear difference here with Ossoff supporting these direct payments while Perdue doesn't, I think this ad effectively communicates that. And we're going to see. If he's ultimately successful. I think it's going to be a tight race, and it may come down to Republicans not being enthusiastic about voting because they're now distrustful of the voting system because of all the BS that Trump's peddling. So if there's a suppressed conservative base coming out, that's going to help John Ossoff. And if John Ossoff continues pushing a message out like this about, you know, very focused message around certain policy issues like getting money in people's hands, then I think it will help him to potentially win this race. Okay. Got one story left. Look at that. Making incredible time today. Let me see if there's some more chats before moving on. Fly Chomper Fly says, RE checks through the mail. Fact, the poorer you are, the more you need the check, but the less likely you are to have a direct deposit with the IRS. That makes sense. Yes. Yeah, there has to be... I feel like there's been discussions, I forget what the specifics are now, but there were definitely discussions about about other ways to get money into people's hands, because as you mentioned, a lot of people just don't have, they don't pay their taxes, or they don't have any money, and they just need the help. And there are other ways to potentially get people that money, but the IRS is just, I guess, the most obvious. But clearly, as you say, it wouldn't serve everybody that actually needs help. All right. This next one, got a few links here. I'm ending on a doozy because this brings me back to primary days. Bernie Sanders being attacked, and me making the case against the attackers. Just 1 second as I prep this. And if you were here at the beginning, this is the video where I'll just show you now because I referenced a clip from this video. If you're new to this channel, be prepared to be shocked by what you're about to see. That's me. Do you remember that guy? He looks so... This guy looks weird. Guy looks really different. Congress worked with Bernie Sanders. What a weird guy. Anyways, I got this clip coming up for this reason. Man, times have changed. That feels so long ago. I don't even recognize that person anymore. All right, almost prepped here. One person says, "Holy shit." Wow, a lot of people are new or just forgot what I look like. Amazing. That's funny. Yeah, my beard was a lot shorter. That's one thing I forgot about. My beard was much shorter than it is now. I mean, the hair, obviously, I didn't forget about that, but it looked really different. All right, story is prepped. Let's get rocking. During a discussion on the lack of real financial help for people right now, MSNBC host Stephanie Ruhle went after Bernie Sanders for his record in the Senate. Watch this.
You know, Stephanie, I always get a kick. Here in Washington, when we go to war, there's endless amounts of money. Tax breaks for billionaires, endless amounts of money. Corporate welfare, endless amounts of money. When children are going hungry in America today, suddenly we don't have enough money. That's crap. That's wrong. And if we have got to stay here throughout Christmas, which is the last thing in the world that I would want to do, we are going to stay here because we are going to make sure that struggling working families in this country get the help they desperately need.
Senator, I'm not agreeing with you fundamentally, but I want to talk to you practically. You've been the lead sponsor of 422 bills during your 30 years in Congress, but only 7 of them have become law. Given that record and how dire things are, as you just laid out, do you need to find another lane or take a different approach here?
I don't think that's the issue, Stephanie. I mean, you can ask me how many other senators have passed significant legislation in recent years. Question is, you could name post offices and so forth and so on. Some of the legislation that I've worked on, the Veterans Bill, for example, has been very significant in passing. But the issue right now is the United States Congress going to stand up for working people or not? And I am doing my best to rally not only Democrats but Republicans as well. Now, as you may know, the proposal that came out of the White House just yesterday talks not about $1,200 per person, but $600. That's unacceptable. And by the way, they want to do away with all extended unemployment benefits, and that is also unacceptable.
All right. This is really, man. They even had a graphic. they prepped a graphic. Bernie Sanders is the only person in the Senate actually fighting for people, and they went through the trouble of prepping a graphic to try and show that he hasn't actually done anything. Isn't the real issue is that the rest of Congress is not on board with actually helping working class people? Isn't that the issue here? No, Bernie Sanders is the issue for being the lone voice of reason. It's completely nuts. And you see her Freudian slip at the beginning there. I'm not agreeing with you fundamentally. Clearly, she meant to say I'm agreeing with you fundamentally, but she said I'm not agreeing with you fundamentally. It really is. This is somebody who, by the way, I believe worked in Wall Street. Stephanie Ruhle, incredibly wealthy, of course, like the vast majority of people on television that are hosting shows come from a position of a certain perspective of the wealthy and really do not know what life is like for most people. Now, let me go through some reactions to this insanity. David Sirota here tweeting out, literally every single person in politics and media knows that the name on a bill metric of evaluation is horseshit in a legislative process involving amendments and getting stuff written into underlying bills. So Stephanie Ruhle is being deliberately, calculatedly, and maliciously deceptive. Now, let me also show you this. I've referenced this a couple times over the years because this is a former Republican congressman. This is Bob Ney, and here he is discussing how effective and how selfless Bernie Sanders is.
Talk about Bernie Sanders. You served with him in the Financial Services Committee in the House.
Yes, Financial Services.
So what's your impression of Senator Sanders?
He's amazing. He would come into our office, but he would come down the hallway or in our office, a big thing under his arm, and he'd be like, oh, Bernie's read everything again. Real quick story. He came in my office and he had an amazing idea for cost of living increase to help seniors instead of the ridiculous way we do it. And he went all through, and I said, Bernie, I said, that's amazing. I'm on the bill. He said, no. This isn't about pride of authorship. I remember his words. No, I want to pass this. You take the bill. That's Bernie Sanders. The Bernie Sanders I knew for 11 years, and the Bernie Sanders, Larry Sanders, his brother knows, and the Bernie Sanders you see here today, he's the real deal. Philosophically, do I agree with a lot of things with Bernie Sanders? Some I do, some I don't. I did press conferences of trade bills with him. I love his trade position because trade bills are ruining American workers' lives. But beyond that, even if I don't agree with him, working with the guy was amazing. He got more done than he's been given credit for. He wasn't, like I said, the pride of authorship guy. He was honest. You knew what he said is what you could take to the bank. I can't say enough about the personal integrity and the zest and the tenacity for working people that Bernie Sanders had and has and will have.
Isn't that incredible? And it's the kind of thing where because this is the kind of person Bernie Sanders is, he's never going to push back on Stephanie Ruhle and say, well, actually, I took my name off a bunch of bills so they would actually pass, because he's not in it for himself. And to have a former Republican come out and discuss how Bernie would take his name off of bills so that they would actually pass through a Republican controlled Congress. I mean, it shows you that this was never, it was never about him. It's always about his fight for people. And he was also, look, I can go into more. He was known as the Amendment King. He actually got a lot through because of using amendments. But let me go through a couple of tweets here from Warren Gunnels, close advisor and aide to Bernie Sanders for I guess over a decade now, or decades. So he tweeted out here in response to Stephanie Ruhle, here's some homework for you, Stephanie Ruhle. Now, I'm not going to read through all this as I've done it in the past, because it's really hard for me to read this tiny lettering here. But I will link to his tweet below the video. Warren Gunnels, if you go to his Twitter page, also has this pinned to the top of his page, so you can just go check his page and see this list here. But he writes, the New York Times doesn't want you to know it, but I am damn proud of the accomplishments Senator Sanders and our staff have achieved in the Senate and the House, both inside and outside the Beltway. Here's just 20 of our achievements in the 2 decades I've worked with him. So he goes through a lot here. Let me see what I can read. Increasing wages of over 60,000 Disney workers to at least $15 an hour, raising wages of 350,000 Amazon workers to at least $15 an hour, passage of veterans legislation with John McCain providing $5 billion to hire more doctors and nurses at the VA. 7 states and over 40 cities passed $50 an hour minimum wage laws. Passage of legislation ending our involvement in the Saudi-led war in Yemen. Anyways, I'll link to all this below the video. He's done a lot, but he never gets the credit for it, and part of the reason is because he takes his name off of bills so that they would actually pass. I mean, that shows you the kind of person he is. One last thing here from Warren Gunnels. Major bills Bernie did not sponsor: the Iraq War, NAFTA, the Wall Street bailout, extending the Bush tax breaks for the 1%, the repeal of Glass-Steagall, permanent normal trade relations with China, the $740 billion defense bill, and quote-unquote welfare reform from the 90s. So there you go. Bernie Sanders always fighting for working class people, and while doing that, always getting attacked by the media. All right. That Bob Nate clip, I could watch that a million times. It's amazing. It shows you Bernie's never gotten the credit that he deserves. And it's really frustrating that a man like that is not allowed to be successful because of the political system and the media apparatus that exists. All right, I'm done. Historically quick today. Actually, not really. No, hour 20 is normally where I finish. Though I guess I started 10 minutes late, so more like an hour 10. But let me grab some chats here if there are any more, and I'll grab some normie chats as well, and then get going. I want to play some games this week, and I've had some time. I've been working a lot this week. My brain is just tired. I was going to get Cyberpunk, but I saw how crappy the console versions look, so I'm going to wait until the PS5 upgrade, and then when that happens, I will play that on Twitch. But for now, I'm playing through Persona 5. I'm actually enjoying a Japanese RPG. Rarely do I ever enjoy them, but I'm digging it. So possibly, maybe, if there's some time, possibly, I'll jump on Twitch this weekend. Link below the video. All right, any chats here that I have not read? Junior McGrath says, David, that was a year ago, and somehow you got more sexier, and all the guys and girls are thirsty. Congrats. All right, just let me just bring this dude up. I say this dude because I don't recognize this person. Look at that guy. What if he's like full screen? Guy's weird. Button up your shirt, dude. Come on now. What is this? What are you doing? What a weirdo. All right. Enough of that. All right, let me grab some normie chats. How y'all doing? Jacob says Persona 5 is so good. Yes, I am really early into it. I'm like 11 hours into it, which for me should be the end of a game. I mean, this game is 100 hours apparently. Man, that's too much. I mean, I purposely didn't get the Royal version, even though there's some other improvements. Well, for one, Persona 5 is free on PlayStation Plus, so that's part of the reason. But the other reason is the newer version adds like 30 hours. Why? Why do I want to add 30 more hours to a 100-hour game? I don't. So 100 hours, I'm looking forward to the end. But it's very fun so far. Very fun. Look for Lex says I gained weight. How dare you? I'm offended by that. You're banned. No, I'm joking. I don't care. I probably did gain weight. I definitely gained weight. But like 5-10 pounds? I don't think I gained that much. Melinda Ortega says, if Texas secedes, will we be able to immigrate to Canada? I don't know why Texas seceding would mean you can immigrate here. I don't know. But I guess we'll find out, though that will never happen. But people ask me about immigrating to Canada. I don't know the laws, and I will not look them up. I'm sure it's very complicated. So, but you can look into it. But I'm sure it's tough. Matt W says stores throw out up to 50% of produce still edible. I did not know that. That is crazy. Mateus N says, of everything Bernie has done, don't you think he has earned it to become labor secretary? For starters, Obama made Clinton secretary. Bernie's earned any position he wants because of his lifelong fight. But because it's a lifelong fight for the working class, he's not going to get whatever position he wants because the system does not favor those who actually spend their lives being public servants. Weirdly, yes, when you're a public servant, if you actually serve the public, you don't get rewarded. If you serve wealthy donors, serve the wealthy, serve special interests, then you get rewarded. That's how the American system works. And what's really, bothersome about the entire thing is that the media does not report it that way. It's politics is discussed in the mainstream press as if it's a sport, and it's not looked at. I mean, every single day they should be discussing how these politicians, if the media does what it's supposed to do and actually represent people, then every day they should be on air discussing how this Congress is not representing you, it's representing wealthy interests. They're trying to put in that liability clause to protect corporations from being sued over any customer or employee getting COVID. I mean, that shows you where their interests lie. When that is their priority, the liability clause, and not actually getting people real help, people on television should be screaming at how insane this is. But no, they're all part of the system. They're all friends. And it's gross. Duplo Massetti says, just pooped my pants. Here's some money. Thank you. I'm also here for future poops. If you poop your pants again, feel free to send me more cash. But thank you. I appreciate it. All right, let me see some more. Heather Chambers says, took me 3 years to become permanent resident in Canada with Canadian husband. It's not easy. Yikes. There you go. Yeah, I've only ever heard stories of it being tough to immigrate here. The Flag Dragon says, David, what do you think of Jimmy Dore's proposal to stonewall Pelosi's confirmation in order to get a vote on Medicare for all? I think he's correct. I definitely have some major disagreements with Jimmy Dore from time to time, but he's right. He's right about that for sure. Let me see what else here. Sharon Carlton says Mitch McConnell is the one holding things up. Oh, of course, yes. But, no one in the party is pushing him to do otherwise. It's important not to just, put blame on, just Trump and just Mitch McConnell. It's the entire party. They're all in on it. And it's not even just them. Again, it's also the Democratic Party, just to a slightly lesser extent. But, no. I mean, that was one of the major strategic issues that Biden and Democrats made, or strategic mistakes they made during the election, was to not pin Trump to the entire party. Trump is the party. They all follow him. They all listen. And I don't just mean the voters, the politicians as well. They don't defy him. Occasionally they'll do rhetorically, but when it comes to actual policy, they're 100% in line with him. And the idea that Trump is somehow an outlier from the party is just not true. You have to pin Trump to the entire party. And because they didn't do that, you ended up seeing a scenario where Trump lost the election, but a lot of Republicans kept their seats and actually gained when it came to the House. All right. Well, let me grab a few more and then get out of here. I'm going to scroll up a bit. Mario Quaid says, why do you stream at the same time as Nomiki? It's so hard to choose. Ask Nomiki. I was here first. It's fine. There's plenty of, you don't have to watch me live. You can watch me later. Or same with her. You don't have to watch her live. You can watch her later. These streams stay up later. So there's just an island stream once a week on Fridays. Nomiki's, I believe, Tuesday to Friday. There's enough time for all of us. But I've been doing this at this time for what? Almost 2 years now, maybe? I forget when I started doing these live streams on Fridays, but it's been over a year. So I was here first. I put the flag in. Nathan Drake, great name, says, have you heard of Lee Carter's potential run for governor of Virginia? Yes, I did hear about that. I need to read more about his run, but Lee Carter is a socialist in Virginia. He holds a state seat there. Would absolutely love to see him run, and I want to see how he campaigns. He's unabashedly like for what he's for. He doesn't hold back, and he's been successful doing that. So I want to see. It's still going to be tough to win a race like that statewide, but it's not impossible. DJ sends a super chat saying, imagine if the Republicans had SCOTUS, POTUS, Senate, and House. What do you think they would do? Specific policies they would push through. You just have to go back to Trump's first term, right? I mean, they essentially had that. It's always going to be far right when it comes to either economic policy or when it comes to social policy. Occasionally, when it comes to social policy, the Supreme Court has been the so-called, it is a conservative court, but when it comes to certain issues, I can't think of one specifically now, but I know there's one recently I covered where it was a ruling I expected to go the opposite way, but it actually went the more positive way. And it was I believe it was a ruling on a social issue. But occasionally there's, some movement there. But when it comes to economic policy, it's no holds barred. They just push whatever they want through. iBot says, David, do you think People's Party will have any significant impact in the future? The future is a long time. It's infinity. So at some point in infinity, do I think People's Party will be successful? Yes. But a lot has to happen for a third party to really be able to take power. And a lot of it is cultural, because Americans are just used to voting for one or the other. And even if they see it, third parties exist now, and they're not successful. So it'll take somebody in a position of power willing to open up the electoral system to allow challengers in. And once you have power, very unlikely that person in power wants to invite more competition into the equation. You saw that with the Liberal Party in Canada. Justin Trudeau promised electoral reform in 2015. He won a majority. They didn't do it. And he ran on electoral, like every speech he would talk about how they're going to change the system from first past the post. Did not do it once they won. So, once you attain, it's really easy to talk a good game about improving the system when you're running, but when you actually attain power and you won that power through the current system, the chance of you changing it or being willing to change it lessens, because ultimately it would hurt you. So I don't know. A lot has to get done. There has to be a change to how the system operates for third parties to really be viable. Amy Richards says, hear any more about, I'm losing my voice now. Hear any more about Nina Turner? Only what I covered this week, that she appears to be running for Congress. She's filed the paperwork, and Marcia Fudge is going to move into Biden's cabinet. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. My voice is definitely gone. That's crazy. All right. I guess that's my signal to go. Thank you all for showing up today. Thank you all for the super chats. Again, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon. Definitely hit both of those things right now. The bell icon especially, because you have to know when these videos go up. YouTube suppresses independent media. So hit that bell icon. You'll know when videos go up, and you're not going to be bothered by it. It's like twice a day, 3 times a day at most. Actually, 2 days this week, I got 3 videos up. Come on now. I'm the only guy here. I'm the only one doing the work, putting the work in. I managed to get 6 videos out in 2 days. Doesn't normally happen. But with your support, it encourages me. So hit that join button or support me on Patreon, rationalnational.com/join. There is the graphic. That it always bothers me that it's overlaying over my name key, but whatever. I'm not going to fix that now. So that's also linked below the video. Become a patron on there. And what else? There's PayPal for one-time donations, whatever. Help me any way you can, if you can. I know it's tough right now. If you can't, don't worry. But if you can, help out. It helps me keep going. All right. Possibly see you all on the weekend, maybe, if I can find time for Twitch. My life is really busy behind the scenes right now. At some point, maybe I'll tell you why. But it's really busy right now. But at some point, if I can this weekend, I will go on Twitch, play some Persona. Otherwise, see y'all next week. Goodbye. Hey, I'm here. Sorry, very late. I'm sure this person's already gone. But Adrian Thomas asks tips for your viewers on how to grow such luscious hair. Also, what oil do you apply to make that beard? That beard? It says bread. Make that beard look so good. I do nothing, and I do nothing. Shampoo, condition. Sometimes leave-in conditioner afterwards, but that's just the way it is. And that's it. All right. Thank you, Adrian, for that late super chat. But I wanted to make sure I got that in. All right. Goodbye.